Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We've been covering a lot of topics today. If you've been following along, if this is your first time watching, thanks for doing so. What we're talking about right now is Diane Downs, a convicted murderer who had a parole hearing today. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Diane Downs, she is a notorious person in the Northwest. In the 80s, I believe it was 1983, she was found, she attempted to murder, well, she did murder her daughter and attempted to murder two of her other children. That was on May 19th of 1983. She was convicted in 84. She escaped after that for a while in 1987, briefly escaped, and she has been she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. She's been denied, but now today was another parole hearing. So what we're going to be doing is actually playing some of her testimony at this parole hearing. I'm just going to give you a little bit of context here. We'll run this while we're talking here so you can get a look at who we're talking about. That is Diane Downs from back then. This was her in prison. This was, I believe, a KPTV interview from back then while she was cooking in prison. She's been there since her conviction, since her capture, and today she had her chance at parole again. So we're going to run this. You're going to be seeing a video of her speaking now in the modern, in today, and we're just going to run this right now. And here you go.
I am a literal person. I am a literal person. I take everything literally. When you say, what happened on May 19th? What happened on May 19th was we were shot. Literally, that was it. And when people say, did you hurt your children? Literally, no, I didn't. And during this life scripting class, I realized that I did. That 8 years ago was an epiphany for me, and it's like the floodgates have opened. I did. If my children had not been with me on that road, nothing would have happened to them. I didn't want somebody to shoot my children. I did not have a gun. I did not shoot my children. But if my children had not been with me that night, they would not be dead and injured. I am the reason for that. I am the reason for that. And I know that, but I did not understand it because I am a literalist. I am a literal person.
Okay, Ms. Downs.
That opened it up for me.
In your narrative regarding your childhood and your years living at home, you say that you were just saying how you felt loved and sheltered and there was no trauma. And I guess I'm confused because there are reports where you say that your father sexually abused you, and then you later recant those claims. So what is that? I mean, did your father sexually abuse you? And if he did not, why did you tell people he had? So can you talk about how this fits into the life scripting work that you did?
I can. My dad did not abuse me. He did not abuse anybody in my family. When my husband and I divorced, after I was in Oregon, my children were shot. My ex-husband came to Oregon. He knew that the only way that he would have hooks in me is if he had custody of the kids. He said, I want my children to come home with me to Arizona. That would force me to go back to Arizona because he knew I would follow them. The detectives at that time said, no, they have grandparents here in Oregon and they need medical attention. So if anybody gets custody, it will be the grandparents. Steve lied in order to diminish their ability to take custody and said, oh, well, you can't do that. Diane's dad is a molester. I did not know that Steve said this until June. It was probably the middle of June. The shooting was in May. So a month later, my attorney said, Susan Staffel of Children's Services wants to talk to you about the molestation. And I said, what molestation? He said, Steve said, to Susan Staffel that you were molested. I said, I was not. He says, well, you're going to have to address that. And I said, that's easy. It didn't happen. He said, you can't just tell Susan Staffel you weren't molested, because then it sounds like I didn't have a gun. I didn't do the shooting. I didn't get molested. I didn't. You have to admit something. That way, when you say I didn't, then you're more believable. I said, but none of it is true. I didn't have a gun. I didn't shoot my children. I love my children, and I wasn't molested. He goes, I'm not going to let you tell her that. You have to admit that you were. I said, but it's a lie. So Susan Staffel, and then he put me in the room with Susan Staffel, and she goes, so I want to talk about the fact that your dad molested you. I said nothing. She goes, so what do you have to say about it? I said nothing. He would not let me. Then he put me on the witness stand, and he bamboozled me. Nobody else talked about this. My attorney is the one who brought it up and said, now, how do you feel about being molested? Oh my goodness. And I was angry. He goes, you're angry about that? I said, I'm angry because he knew it was a lie, and yet he's the one that put it on the record. And it wasn't true. And when it came time to talk to the pre-sentence investigator, I told her it's not true. It is not true. My dad should not have to wear that ugly badge for something that he didn't do, simply because my ex-husband was trying to manipulate the state because he wanted to get custody of my children, because he knew I would follow him back to Oregon if he had custody. That is what happened. And there you go. There's nothing more I can say about that. The truth is the truth.
So, okay, I just have a couple of clarifying questions. So what you're saying is that this was made up by Steve in order to try to manipulate you to return with him to
Arizona.
Right, okay. At one point you said Oregon, but I assume you meant Arizona, right?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then you're saying that your defense lawyer told you to lie about this to make you look more credible? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would not have said it that way, but yeah. To put it in a nutshell, yes.
Okay. And so when you met with Susan Staffel, you did not deny it. You just said nothing.
I said nothing.
And when you were on the witness stand, you said you were angry, but didn't clarify it or
no, he made me say that it happened. He made me say, if you read my transcript, and I'm sure you have, you will see that Jim Jagger testified, and I was just the one saying, no, yes, no. Jim Jagger testified he was the one who testified during my trial. And when that was happening, it was because he knew I was not going to say what he wanted me to say. And so he testified. Now, isn't it true that your dad molested you? Oh, yeah.
Well, you could have said no, right?
I could have said no, and I should have said no, but he said, if you don't, what he told me was Susan Staffel, if you don't say this happened, and then you look vulnerable, and then when you say no, that you didn't do the shooting, you're more believable. Yes. So yes, he was absolutely convinced that this needed to be said, even though it was a lie. And I told him, it's not fair. Why are you going to do this to my dad? He goes, well, this isn't about your dad, it's about you. And I said, no, because now you're turning my dad into some kind of a monster, and he's not.
Okay.
It still makes me angry. It still makes me angry.
Okay. You understood, though, that you were under oath and you were sworn to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And that you lied under oath.
Yes.
Okay. For the record, you're saying your attorney suborned perjury by asking you to introduce information that he knew was false. Is that correct?
Wow. I never thought of it that way, because that's exactly what he did. Let me write that down. I'll be right back.
Okay, so he could lose his bar license for doing
He-
that, but that's what you're saying he did during your trial, correct?
He has already resigned. And so he, as far as I know, he doesn't even have a license anymore. I mean, when you resign, I think you have to re-up it. I don't know. I'm not out there. All I can tell you is I did not shoot my children. My attorney should have represented me to the best of his ability. And I don't know that he did or that he didn't. I don't know what his abilities were, but I can tell you I did not shoot my children. We have DNA evidence that was found at the scene that my attorney is going to be introducing.
And so what would you, if you had a counselor that believed you wholeheartedly, what
Yes.
would you work on with them then? Like, what are the things that you have identified in yourself that you need to work on with this counselor?
Ah, wow. I don't even know, because most of it, I've talked with Dr. Rossi and Dr. Shoji. So they actually, whether or not they believed in me, they gave the appearance of believing in me. And so that was healing. But even then, I didn't delve deep into, I think what it would be is my own, I can tell you one thing. The thing that makes me cry, the only thing about all of this that makes me cry, gut hard cry, is knowing that it was my fault. That's what I would want to deal with. I need to have somebody that I could talk to that would listen to me and would accept the fact, number one, that I'm innocent of shooting, but that I am guilty of putting my children in danger. That I have never reconciled, ever. Not through all the classes. I've never reconciled that. I can't, because there's no excuse for it. There's no changing it. There's no going back for it. There's no forgiveness for that. So I don't want to forgive myself, but I don't know, that's the only thing that sticks. That's the only thing that sticks, that if I was to ever have a counselor, and like I said, Dr. McNeil has graciously offered to counsel me when I get out. That would be my thing, is coming to terms when I'm alone in my shower, because that's the only place you're alone in here. That is the only thing that I really, really struggle with. Everything else I have come to grips with, but not that, because it can never be changed. No matter how much we talk, no matter how many questions I'm asked, no matter how many times I sit before the board, that night is never going to change. And so therefore, in my soul, it never goes away. It never gets reconciled. I don't even know that it can. Even if I had a psych, I'm not even sure that it could be, because
All right, so there we go. Diane Downs speaking her side of the story. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and, excuse me, apologies. We're getting pulled up here. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We will be back if there's anything that happens between now and 4 p.m. I appreciate everybody joining us and being a part of the show. We've been covering a lot here today, nonstop. We're here every weekday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. We're also here from 11 a.m. to noon. So if anything's going on, breaking news-wise or otherwise, we'll bring that to you directly. But we're going to go ahead and take a break now. Most likely we won't be back, but our 4 p.m. news is coming up. We'll have updates on what's going on there with the court case regarding the potential National Guard deployment to the city of Portland and whether that is legal or not. So we'll have all those details for you at 4. But unless something happens between now and then, I will talk to you tomorrow. I'm Greg.